won a Grammy. I'm actually America's first female
Oh,
classical pianist to win a Grammy. And so what I won for was a work called Oiseau Exotique.
Dramatic tracks. Tonight, 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 tonight. Don't feel like being lonely tonight. Tonight, I don't wanna be lonely.
we have a pianist with us on Shea Marie's Diva Vixens podcast. Could you tell us your name and where you're located at the moment?
Yes, I'm Angelin Chang. I'm based in Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States.
Okay. Thanks
Yeah.
for joining us.
Yeah, the big musical city of Cleveland. Yeah.
So, could you tell us your origin of being a pianist?
Sure, I'd be happy to. How far would you like to go?
Wherever you believe is good focal point.
Okay. Well, for those of you who are interested in the very beginning, I started by accident. So I wasn't pressured into lessons like sometimes you think parents will want to make sure the kids have lessons and stuff like that. No, it was very much by accident, and it was something that I was drawn to at an early age. So fast forward, it's like a lot of my teachers were very, very encouraging and supportive that I go into music. That I thought, yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'll give that a try because I really love it. And so it's worked out. With that, it's allowed me to travel to just about every continent so far except for Antarctica for my music. Um, and then I studied not only in the States but also in Europe, primarily Europe, during my formative years at for example, the Paris Conservatory in France, and other institutions like Indiana University, Johns Hopkins, Peabody Conservatory, among other places too. But just to give you a basic idea, and what's interesting is that they say hindsight is 2020, but in Paris, in France, the biggest mentors I had, my piano teacher, her name was Yvonne Loriot Messiaen. Her last name was, her husband's name was Messiaen. She was the wife of the composer Olivier Messiaen, also a big mentor for me. One of the most prominent composers of the 20th century in classical music. And so, yeah, so they were very much they were so important to me, and professionally and also personally, they were like surrogate parents in many ways to me. And when I was in Paris, because I went there on my own by myself as a teenager basically, and later on when I won a Grammy. I'm actually America's first female classical pianist to win a Grammy. And so what I won for was a work called Oiseau Exotique, Exotic Birds, by composer Olivier Messiaen, who was my big mentor during my formative years. So what was special about that to me wasn't only, it was wonderful to win a Grammy, that type of thing, but it was because what it was for. And I really felt like it paid tribute to my teachers, folks who gave me so much. And so that's why I'm also a teacher today, because I felt like I would not be here without their support, without their guidance, encouragement, and so forth.
So just hearing your story, a person that's trying to get into the business, sounds like it's expensive because you had to go through a lot of schooling, or is that a wrong conception?
Well, what's interesting is that in the United States, there are a lot of private institutions, and they seem very prestigious. I mean, Johns Hopkins included, but I mean, it's a little bit rare to have an institution like Indiana University. It's a big state university
Yeah.
that is very prestigious in music too. And state meaning that it's state funded by the state, and it's usually lower cost. But in Europe, it's quite the opposite. It's like a lot of the private institutions, opposite as far as prestige. A lot of private institutions you can pay to get in, but the Paris Conservatory, or in French, it's the Conservatoire National Supérieur de Musique de Paris. A little bit long, but just Paris Conservatory, I guess, Conservatoire. For example, would be the most prestigious musical institution, not only there, but worldwide. And it's exceptionally hard to get into.
Yeah.
And if you do get in, then because it is actually not a private, but a state, meaning an institution by France. And so the students who get in, basically it's tuition free, but you get the high quality education without the cost. And so, the key is to get in and to get out too. But with that, the state institutions there are a lot more prestigious because of that. It's much harder in that way, more elite. We can get into that later.
Sounds, because my sister, Shea Marie, she actually started piano, and I just remembered that her and my cousin, when they were little kids,
yeah,
they would start, but then there was nowhere else for them to go, like in Toronto. They didn't know like any outlets. So it's kind of good that you at least laid a groundwork on where people could go.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm based in Cleveland, Ohio, and I teach at it's a wonderful city, really vibrant music. Not only classical music, which I do, but there's a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't know if you've heard of that, but yeah, that's big. All sorts of music, a lot of alternative music too that happens. But so I currently teach at Cleveland State University, which is a public institution, because that's where I got my start, and it means a lot to me. It's the only public university in the city of Cleveland. Can you imagine? There are other private institutions, but for me, a mission is really to be able to discover diamonds in the rough, meaning that I've seen so many people who have so much talent, but maybe they didn't have the opportunity or didn't know where to go. And at such a university, we're really able to mold and develop that, because a lot of times, as you mentioned, sometimes people don't know where to go, and a lot of times by the time they decide, they want to go to conservatory, a certain level is already expected, right? But it doesn't mean that they don't have talent if they don't have that level yet. A lot of times it's because they don't have the training or the skills that were developed along with that, nurturing that talent. So what I pride myself in as an educator is to recognize that talent, no matter what skill level they start out on, and then they can really, really soar and really develop their individual talents to their potential and how they would like to develop, basically. So
I interviewed an artist that was signed to Motown. She's from Toronto, Melanie Durant. I saw that you used to play piano early on in your life. Could you tell us about that?
Well, I played piano by ear at first. And basically I used to live with my babysitter, and her kids would get up in the morning and play piano and practice. So morning, lunch, and after school, piano. Everybody had to rehearse for a half hour to an hour. And I was hearing this every day. So I went over to the piano and I started playing what I heard them playing. So then she said to my mom, she needs lessons. And I said, why, if I'm playing what they're playing? And I didn't get no lessons. But it was easier for me to just go by memory and let my fingers do the talking, So I went to, I think, grade 11, Royal Conservatory of Music. And Yeah, it was fun.
Do you think you have an edge knowing how to read music, and does that help you in any way when you're creating your music?
No. No, not at all. I haven't come into the predicament where I needed to use that skill in studio or while writing.
Yeah.
But I do think that playing the piano, it broadened my horizons when it came to vocals and harmonies. So I do a lot of harmonies within my music and my arrangements with my voice, but I kind of use my voice like the piano instead of playing it. So I accompany and I support, and so there's a high, a low, a mid. There's many, many parts in many different songs because I love harmonies and I love the movement of music.
I'll tell you what's special about the piano as opposed to some, other instruments, including voice, is that it really has a full range. It has the bass, the lowest of the bass to the highest in the treble. And you can play a lot of chords all at the same time, as well as make the melody. Typically, let's say voice, unless you're trained as, let's say, a Mongolian throat singer, which they can sing more than one note at the same time, for example, it's usually just one note, one melodic line, one note at a time. And so the idea behind the piano, for example, having the chords, the harmony, you get a sense of the chords and a good foundation for the harmonies. While, let's say, the voice, you can still have the melodic line, and you can merge that together and have a better, more holistic understanding of the music instead of just one part. So, I mean, if you have the music, typically, let's say if it's sheet music, you see the full part, you can play the chords, or if it's a lead sheet, the chords, the notes, the whole piece, and you can also sing the melodic line. You get the full picture, and that's how a lot of folks will say that, knowing piano helps because then they can get the full picture. But for some other people, it's like, well, playing the piano isn't really the piano isn't an instrument that sustains the notes like your voice. Like, as long as you use your breath, sustain your breath, you can really make it long, and however long you want to hold it. Or like stringed instruments, they can really hold the length, or other wind instruments, they can really sustain the notes. With piano, it's essentially a percussion instrument, meaning that once you hit the note or you hit the key, and then there's a hammer that strikes a string. But once it's played, then it has an automatic, like, it doesn't sustain. You can only make the illusion of it sustaining, but it doesn't actually really sustain. So what I'm saying is that it's very different from voice, which you can just continue the note. With piano, like percussion, it's articulation reflects, and how you manipulate the notes in between, of course, is very important. But it just has a totally different way of sounding the music and making the notes, that I can see how doesn't help physically sometimes for the singer's understanding of how to create the notes, but more of a theoretical and comprehensive musical understanding, if that makes sense. I'm talking a little more conceptual, a little deep with that. So
there's a lot of artists and singers that watch, so
okay.
They'll be getting tips from you right there.
Okay.
So you also have some projects. Could you tell us what the projects have been, like music releases, and how long was that process from when you started? Was it overnight, or that was years in process?
Oh yeah, a lot of times you hear new artist or overnight sensation, all that type of thing. Well, it's interesting because by the time that happens, so much preparation and hard work has happened before that most people don't see in order for that to happen. Yeah. So typically years in the process, years, decades even, for things to really develop. But people are like, oh, so it takes that long to be a musician. Well, it's not so much in order to get to that goal, but it's a journey.
Yeah.
Journey. It's like, it's not something you just you attain it and that's it. It's like it's something that continues to cultivate. It's like it's like even a performance. It's like even if you have a wonderful meal, it's not like you just eat once and that's it.
Yeah.
You
Because I saw in a documentary probably like a couple of weeks ago, they were analyzing the singers from the 60s and 70s, and they were saying those singers put in a lot of hours before people would actually see them, because they would be either in the choir, and then they would have school, and then they would have their own teachers. So they were mentioning people like Aretha Franklin, and they were saying there was a lot of hours put in for them to get to that level. But
Absolutely.
but now in today's age, because of social media and everything, sometimes people think it's like a 1 year process or 2 year process where boom, you're viral. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, so that's the thing. I mean, to really sustain a career, you have to have a lot of things going on, and sometimes that's why a lot of people want to do a lot of output, which is wonderful these days, a lot of content, but it's a little it's kind of hard because sometimes it's not really organic and it's not really genuine, which I think that's a big part to music. I mean, yeah, it's great when it's genuine. It's great. And it can be fast. It doesn't have to take like decades necessarily, because if you connect, I mean, it's based on a lot of times your personal experience, and sometimes it just works. You get it, and it can be fast. But for some other things, to develop, we have to have some patience. It's like growing something, right? You place the seed in. There's that saying about like like if you want to grow like avocados or tomatoes, well, avocados are wonderful, but it takes much longer. But tomatoes are much faster, right? So, but there are different types of, fruits foods that we grow, but sometimes certain things take longer than the others. And, sometimes it's easier to capitalize, let's say, on the tomatoes first while the avocados are still growing.
That's true. I've seen that you performed in some stadiums and prestigious halls. Could you tell us some of those locations?
Oh, yeah. So this year I did a premiere in Carnegie Hall in New York. I've played in some big let's say concert halls in Cleveland and a lot of places, and some stadiums too. Actually, a lot of hockey stadiums in Canada, where you are, as well. So, I did go on a tour once, which was usually classical music you play in an intimate setting because it's live acoustics and all that, where it's not usually microphoned and all that. It's not there's not a speaker thing. But I did go on a tour once with an orchestra. And it was for a special production called Star Wars in Concert. And that's what took me to all those big
I heard of that.
Yeah.
I'm a Star Wars fan. Yeah, I heard of that. Star Wars concert.
Yeah, Star Wars concerts, right? But also recently I've been doing some things online as well. So some concerts I've been doing, especially during the pandemic. There's with that's called the Worldwide Afro Network, WAN, WAN. So we, that's something that's very special. It's this year's dedicated to my a dear friend of mine who was with Radio France also and did a lot of broadcasts. Originally from Cameroon. Amobe Mevege. I don't know if you heard of him, but basically is based in France. So we unfortunately this was a tough year these past few years here.
My condolences. I know of.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you've been a professor at the Cleveland University. Could you tell us how that is different from being a performer, teaching the students?
Oh yeah. It's, for me, it really, I think it really complements what I do, because I like to practice what I preach, meaning that
Yeah.
I might, sometimes, sometimes, it's said that a lot of times if you can't do, then you teach, meaning that it's you can't do it, so you tell others what to do. Well, I don't believe in that. I don't believe that in many ways. I think it's really important that you're able to do it,
Yeah.
and I like to prove it, and then transmit. Hey, these are proven techniques. Not that, okay, it's like, okay, well,
In theory, yeah, you've actually done it, so you know it works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I do is I've been working with a lot of professionals on, well, a lot of professionals come to me because they have had injuries or pain that had gotten in the way of their actually performing, because sometimes the pain is so debilitating they can't play. Can you imagine not being able to play the piano because your hands hurt? I mean, that's sad. That's really sad, because you there's so much expression from within that you want to express. Yeah. So these things are actually very curable, but a lot of times it has to do with not knowing what to do. And a lot of times people don't know what to do, and they just try anything, and sometimes it gets worse. So I actually help my students stay out of pain too. That's what I do. That's very special, actually. And not only is it about staying out of pain and preventing injuries, but these techniques are actually virtuosic techniques, meaning that you stay healthy, but because you're healthy, you're able to really, really play in a very, very free and very brilliant manner. That because you're basically in the zone, you're able to be at your potential. You're able to use the tools that you have, meaning that you feel free, you don't have pain, you can really play fast, whatever you want to do, fast, loud, expressive, express what's inside your heart. And that's my main thing, because I think a lot of times technique is stopping people from expressing their artistry. And a lot of times people just want to work on technique, but technique is a tool for musical expression. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you like your listeners to take away from your performances?
I think that, even though, like I just mentioned, a lot of times people think of the technique, it's like, oh, wow, they played so fast. How do they do that? And yeah, that's great. That's great. It's sensational. But really, it's what's from the heart. I think that's the most important thing that connects us humans, to really be able to express the heart. And so there's
the emotional effect of the music.
Exactly, the emotional effect, the spiritual. So connecting mind, body, and spirit all together, and expressing what's inside that go beyond words. A lot of times words can express so much, but with music, for me anyways, and I think for a lot of people, it expresses beyond the words. And it really helps the heart express and sing what the words cannot.
So are there any other words of advice or anything you would like the viewers to know?
Well, for those who are into music, whether it be playing or listening, that I think that is a very important point, to let your heart guide you. And, especially these days, music really can be very healing. Much more healing than a lot of times we realize. And it means so much. And it's among the arts, it's the most immediate, like it just hits you, right? You don't need any interpretation. you have it, once you hear it, you just feel
Yeah.
automatic. And, also the physical playing of it is very, very healthy too, because, there are like pressure points and these type of things, and the mind-body connection of what you're doing is very, very, very healing. And so it can really keep us young in many ways. So you see a lot of musicians who seem like, wow, they've been here forever. They're like in their 90s and still playing. Actually, I have a teacher in the 90s and still playing. Yeah.
So I guess it keeps people in that youthful mode, because music is something where when you hear something, it takes you back to that exact time when you're younger. It keeps people young and
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good point. Really good point, because it immediately takes you back.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can immediately get you out of certain moods too. Let's say, especially during the pandemic, and it's been kind of long for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
But it can really change your spirit, your outlook very quickly, depending on what you're listening to.
Yeah, that's very true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where people could find you at?
Well, I have a website, for example,
Yeah.
and my information is there. But so my website's my first and last name, AngelinChang.com. But let me spell that, because my first name I spell ANGELIN
Yeah.
CHANG.com. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hey everyone watching Worldwide Entertainment TV. This is Ashley. Let us know your thoughts below and hit that notification bell after subscribing. Visit WWETVN.com to check out this worldwide exclusive.